The date, January 8, 1815. The place, Chalmette Plantation, Louisiana Territory. The occasion, the Battle of New Orleans. Major General Andrew Jackson had been preparing for this day since his arrival in New Orleans on December 1. Once he arrived, notice came that the British Navy had defeated an American flotilla on Lake Bourne, east of the city. In response, Jackson declared martial law, requiring every weapon and able-bodied man around to defend the city. Over 4,000 men were added to his force, which now consisted of Tennessee and Kentucky frontiersmen, Louisiana militia, New Orleans businessmen, freemen of color, members of the Choctaw Nation, smuggler Jean Lafitte and his privateers, as well as sailors, marines, and United States troops. After a sharp but inconclusive fight south of the city on December 23, Jackson withdrew 2 miles north to the Rodriguez Canal and immediately began construction on an earthwork, later known as Line Jackson, at Chalmette Plantation. Running perpendicular from the Mississippi River for 3/4 of a mile to a cypress swamp, it consisted of logs, earth, and large cotton bales coated with mud, used to protect batteries of cannons. On Christmas Day, General Sir Edward Pakenham arrived and assumed command of the British Expeditionary Force. Annoyed by his subordinates' inability to defeat Jackson and capture New Orleans, he moved his army to the Chalmette Plantation, and over the course of the next 5 days made 2 attempts to breach Line Jackson. Both were repulsed by the Americans. But now, on the morning of January 8, left with few options and buoyed by the arrival of reinforcements, Pakenham decides to launch a major assault and orders a pre-dawn attack against the Jackson line. As the sun rises, the early morning fog quickly dissipates, leaving many British soldiers exposed in the open to face withering American cannon and musket fire. On the British left, Major General John Keene's infantry penetrates an unfinished redoubt, only to be brought to a grinding halt in front of the New Orleans Rifles and the 7th U.S. Infantry. Major General Samuel Gibbs' column advances against the American left center, where his ranks are decimated by Tennessee and Kentucky militia. Gibbs is mortally wounded in the attack. Attempting to rally his men, Pakenham rides forward with his staff, but is hit by an American volley. He is carried from the field and later dies of his wounds. Of the 3,000 men under Gibbs and Keene, 2,000 become casualties in less than 30 minutes. A soldier from Kentucky later wrote, "When the smoke had cleared and we could obtain a fair view of the field, it looked at first glance like a sea of blood. It was not blood itself, but the red coats in which the British soldiers were dressed. The field was entirely covered in prostrate bodies." 2 hours after the attack begins, the British withdraw from the battle, having suffered 2,034 killed, wounded, missing, or captured, compared to just 62 American casualties. It is the greatest American land victory in the War of 1812. And in today's era of instant communication, the battle would never have taken place. It actually occurred 15 days after American and British negotiators had signed the Treaty of Ghent, which formally ended the War of 1812 on December 24, 1814. But news of the agreement had not yet reached the United States from Europe. The treaty was unanimously ratified by the U.S. Senate on February 16, 1815. Americans hailed Jackson as a hero, and 13 years later, elect Old Hickory President of the United States.